I woke up from open heart surgery on a Thursday morning. The nurses said the surgery had gone well. They said I was lucky. They said I should rest. The first thing I did was reach for my phone. The account I had spent 31 years building. The savings Patricia and I had kept quiet and careful through 4 recessions, 2 layoffs, and 1 cancer diagnosis. $214,000. Gone, while I was unconscious on an operating table. Someone had been waiting for that moment. I lay there for a long time without moving. The nurse came in to check my vitals. She asked if I was in pain. I said no. That was not completely true. My name is Robert Mitchell. I am 68 years old. I spent 31 years in civil construction, poured concrete, laid foundations, built things meant to outlast the men who built them. I believed that if a man worked hard enough and kept his word, the people he gave everything to would protect what he had built. I was wrong, and the worst part is, my wife Patricia knew I would be. She knew 2 years before I did, and what she left behind because of that is the reason I am still standing today. My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm 68 years old. I've been sitting at this microphone for about 20 minutes, trying to decide where to start this story. I keep coming back to the same place. Not the surgery, not the bank account. I keep coming back to Patricia, to the night she handed me this envelope and said, "Robert, promise me you won't open this until you absolutely have to." I promised. I kept that promise for 2 years, 3 months, and 11 days. And what was inside it changed everything. Stay with me. I'll tell you all of it. I need to tell you something before I get into this. This is not a story about money. I want you to understand that from the first sentence. It is a story about a father, about a son who got lost, about a woman who loved both of us enough to plan for the worst while she was still alive to plan, and about the moment, in this studio, at this microphone, when I finally understood what Patricia had been trying to tell me all along. I started Mitchell Ground Works in 1992 with a second-hand excavator, a small business loan I barely qualified for, and a wife who believed in me more than the numbers did. Patricia kept the books for the first 3 years sitting at our kitchen table after Marcus went to bed. She had a red pencil she used for the columns that were in the wrong direction. In year 1, she used it a lot. By year 4, she barely picked it up at all. We were not a wealthy family. We were a comfortable one. Patricia always made that distinction clear to Marcus when he was growing up. Comfortable means we worked for what we have, she used to tell him. It means we saved before we spent. It means nobody gave us this house. We earned it and we owe nobody for it. I used to think Marcus understood that. I used to think a lot of things. Marcus grew up on job sites. He spent his summers driving nails and pulling wire and learning what concrete looks like when it's mixed wrong. When he went to college, business and finance, I told myself all of that would stay with him. The understanding of what things cost, what they require, how much of a human life goes into building something that looks effortless from the outside. I was too proud of him to ask the right questions. That's on me. Patricia was diagnosed with ovarian cancer 3 years ago. She was 60 years old. She had never smoked, rarely drank, walked 4 miles every morning for 20 years. It didn't matter. The doctor said the words we had both been afraid of without knowing we were afraid of them. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the doctor 2 very specific, practical questions about treatment timelines. That was Patricia. She was already solving it before I had finished being afraid. During treatment, Patricia did something I didn't fully understand at the time. She spent weeks, sometimes months, working quietly at that kitchen table. I asked her once what she was working on. She said, "Just making sure everything is in order, Robert." I didn't push it. Patricia had always been the one who made sure everything was in order. It was one of the reasons I had loved her since I was 26 years old. What I didn't know was what she was specifically ordering, or why, or who she was protecting me from. When she finally told me, in the last weeks quietly, in the hospice chair by the window. I understood every quiet evening at that table, at once. Marcus brought Jennifer home for dinner on a Sunday evening in October. She was polished, confident, the kind of woman who enters a room and immediately understands its value. I tried to like her. She was intelligent. She was well-spoken. But Patricia, who never said an unkind word about a person in 40 years of marriage, went quiet for the rest of that evening after Jennifer arrived. Later, when we were in bed and I asked her what she thought, Patricia looked at the ceiling for a moment. Then she said, "She counted the rooms, Robert." "What?" I said. "When she came in the front door, she counted the rooms. I watched her do it." I told Patricia she was reading too much into it. I was wrong. Patricia was never wrong about people. Not once in 40 years. In her final weeks, Patricia gave me the envelope. She held it against her chest first, the way she held things she wasn't ready to give away yet. Then she held it out to me. "Promise me," she said, "that you will not open this unless things go the way I'm afraid they're going to go." I asked her what she meant. She looked at me with those clear eyes. "You'll know," she said. "When it's time, Robert, you'll know." I promised. She died 9 days later. At 4:17 in the morning, with her hand in mine and the window light just beginning to change. I kept the envelope in the top drawer of my dresser for 2 years, 3 months, and 11 days. I kept my promise. The cardiologist had scheduled the open heart surgery for 6 weeks after my diagnosis. Marcus drove me to the hospital. He sat with me in the pre-op room for about 40 minutes. He seemed distracted. He kept checking his phone under the table, which he thought I couldn't see. I thought it was nerves. I told him, "Marcus, I'll be fine. Go home. I'll call you when I'm out." He nodded. He put his hand briefly on my shoulder. He said, "Love you, Dad." He left at 9:43 in the morning. My surgery started at 10:15. The account was emptied at 2:17 in the afternoon. Marcus was nowhere near a hospital at 2:17 in the afternoon. I found out later that Jennifer had been researching the account for 3 months. She had found the routing information through a joint utility bill. Marcus's name was on my account as an emergency contact, which gave him limited access. She had coached him through the authorization steps weeks before the surgery date. She chose the surgery day specifically. She needed me unconscious, unreachable, and without my phone for at least 6 hours. She had done the math correctly. What she had not done was ask Marcus one question. "Does your father have anything else?" She never asked, because she was absolutely certain she already knew the answer. Patricia had made sure of that. I had been in recovery for approximately 4 hours when I picked up the phone. The balance was 0. I read the transaction 3 times. Wire transfer. Completed. $214,800. 2:17 p.m. I set the phone face down on the tray. I looked at the ceiling for a long time. Then I picked it up again and called Marcus. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I set the phone down again. And I thought about the envelope in the top drawer of my dresser at home. I thought, Patricia, I think it is time. Marcus called back at 11:40 that night. His voice was careful, controlled in the way voices get when someone has been preparing for a conversation they knew was coming. He said, "Hey Dad, how are you feeling? How did the surgery go?" I let a moment of silence sit between us. Then I said, "Marcus, the account." A pause. "I can explain." "I'm not asking you to explain tonight," I said. "I'm still in the hospital. I want you to come here tomorrow morning. Just you. Not Jennifer. Just you." Another pause. Longer. "Okay," he said. His voice had changed, the rehearsed quality gone. What was left underneath sounded younger. Scared. Something I recognized. It sounded like the boy who used to stand outside my workshop door after he'd done something wrong, not sure whether to knock. He stood in the doorway for a moment before he came in. I had seen that posture before. 30 years ago, when he was 8 years old and had broken Patricia's kitchen window with a baseball. He stood exactly like that. Same shoulders, same look. I had forgotten that underneath everything, the suit, the apartment, the expensive life Jennifer had designed for them both, he was still that boy. That was the first time in 2 days that I felt something other than cold. I said, "Sit down, Marcus." He sat. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then he said, very quietly, "Jennifer handled the transfer. I gave her the account access. I told myself it was because she said you'd agreed, that you'd set up a transfer before the surgery in case of—" He stopped. "You knew that wasn't true," I said. He looked down at his coffee cup. He nodded. One small nod. "Yeah," he said. I knew. I looked at my son for a long time. I thought about Patricia sitting at the kitchen table for months, working quietly, planning for exactly this. I thought about the envelope in my dresser drawer. I said, "Marcus, your mother left something for me before she died. An envelope she told me to open when I needed it." He looked up. "I'm going to go home today, and I'm going to open it." "Dad, I need you to understand something before I do," I said. "Whatever is in that envelope, whatever your mother prepared, I want you to know that is not why I am telling you this. I am telling you because your mother loved you. More than the money, more than the business, more than the house. And I need to know if there is still something worth protecting here, between you and me. Because if there is, that envelope is going to matter to you very much." He was looking at me with the expression I had been waiting 2 days to see, like his father's son, like the boy who used to stand at my workshop door. Not Jennifer's husband, my son. "Come to the house tonight," I said. "I'll have coffee ready." The taxi driver offered to help me to the door. I told him I was fine. I stood at the end of the path and looked at the house Patricia and I had bought in 1988 for $80,000 and had never once considered selling. The garden she had kept was dry and overgrown now. I had let it go. I made a note to fix that. But first, the dresser drawer, the envelope, the thing Patricia had spent her last months preparing for me. I went inside. Her handwriting. After 2 years, it still felt like a small shock every time I saw it. The specific slope of her letters, the way she always put a little tail on the R. I sat on the edge of the bed, the same spot she sat every morning to put her shoes on. I held the envelope for a while. Then I opened it. Inside were 2 things. A letter addressed to me, and a second sealed envelope, smaller, with Marcus's name on it in the same blue ink. I read my letter first. It took me 3 times to get through it without stopping. Patricia's letter said, "Robert, if you are reading this, then something happened that I hoped wouldn't, but planned for anyway. I want to tell you first. I am not angry. I was never angry at Marcus. He is our son, and I love him without conditions, and that does not change. But Jennifer, Robert, I watched her. For 2 years I watched her, and I am good at reading people. You know that better than anyone. She came into our lives with a plan, so I made one of my own. 14 months ago, I had a conversation with our attorney, Gerald Hoffman. I created a domestic asset protection trust. Every dollar in our joint savings account, all of it, Robert, was transferred into that trust 8 months before I died. What Marcus and Jennifer emptied was a linked account I left open on purpose. It had $214,800 in it. It was the exact amount Jennifer had calculated we had. She was very thorough. She just didn't know about the trust. The protected account has $1.1 million in it. It cannot be accessed, seized, or transferred by anyone but you. Not Marcus, not Jennifer, not a court order unless one is brought against you personally. I did this because I knew, Robert, I knew what was coming, and I could not leave you with nothing. The second envelope is for Marcus. Give it to him only if you believe he is worth saving. You'll know. You always know people, Robert. You just trust them too much. I love you. I always will. Patricia. I sat there for a long time, $1.1 million, hidden, protected, waiting for me. While Jennifer had spent 6 months calculating and planning and coaching my son through betraying his father, Patricia had already moved the thing they were reaching for. She had done it quietly, patiently, without telling me, because she knew I would argue with her. I would have said, "You're overthinking it, Patricia. He's our son." And she would have been right, and I would have been wrong, and the trust would have stayed in place because Patricia understood something I had taken 40 years to learn. Love is not trust. Love and trust are different things, and the most loving thing you can do for someone you love is protect them from their own blind spots. I looked at the second envelope, Marcus's name. I sat with it in my hands. I thought about the hospital doorway, the boy inside the man, the small real nod. I picked up my phone and called him. "Come now," I said. "I need you to see something." He came at 7. Jennifer was not with him. I noticed that the way you notice when a weight you've been carrying is no longer there. I handed him his coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Patricia kept the books for 30 years. The sealed envelope with his name sat between us. He looked at it. "Is that Mom's handwriting?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He reached for it slowly. Then he stopped. "Before I read it," he said, "I need to tell you something." I waited. "The money," Jennifer said you had agreed. I let myself believe that because it was easier than asking the question I already knew the answer to. I knew you hadn't agreed. I knew she was lying, and I chose not to know. "And I am sorry, Dad. I'm sorry for that more than anything." He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the envelope. Then he looked up. "Are you going to let me fix this?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at my son, at the boy his mother had loved without conditions. "Open the envelope," I said, "then we'll talk." I did not read Marcus's letter. Patricia had written it privately. It was between a mother and her son, but I watched him read it. I watched the moment it reached him. His hands pressed harder on the paper, his shoulders pulled forward slightly, the way they had when he was a boy and something had broken him open. He read it once, all the way through. Then he folded it carefully. He pressed both hands flat on the table. He breathed out slowly. "She knew," he said. "Yes," I said. "She knew and she didn't tell me." "She gave you time," I said. "She hoped she was wrong." A long silence. "She protected you," Marcus said, "even from her, even knowing what Jennifer was." "That's what she did," I said. "She protected the people she loved, even when they didn't deserve it yet." He looked at me. "You said, 'Yet.'" "I did," I said. He nodded. He looked down at the folded letter in his hands. And for the first time in 3 years, since Jennifer had counted the rooms on that October Sunday and Patricia had gone quiet, I felt the table between my son and me begin to clear. We talked until midnight. We talked about things we had not talked about in years. About Patricia. About the early years of the business. About the jobs Marcus had worked on with me as a boy. We talked about Jennifer, not with anger, but with the clear eyes of 2 men who had both let themselves not see something that was visible. We talked about what comes next. At some point Marcus said, "I'm going to give the money back, Dad, whatever I have to do." I said, "We'll figure it out." He said, "Why are you not more angry?" I thought about Patricia, about the trust she had built 14 months before she died, about the way she had protected me, not just with money, but with the knowledge that even the worst outcome was not permanent. "Because," I said, "your mother built this house on a foundation that doesn't fail, and you are part of that foundation, Marcus. You always were. You just wandered off it for a while." He was quiet. Then he said, "I missed her so much after she died, and I let that grief make me stupid. I wanted Jennifer to." He stopped. "I know," I said. And I did. Grief makes people reach for the wrong things. The important thing is whether you can find your way back. He was finding his way back. Right here. At this kitchen table. Patricia's kitchen table. That was enough for one night. Gerald Hoffman had been Patricia's attorney for 16 years. When I called him the morning after I returned from the hospital, he said, "Mr. Mitchell, I've been expecting your call." I asked him how long he had known. He said, "Patricia set this up 14 months before she passed. She was very specific about what she wanted protected and how. The wire transfer Jennifer initiated was from a linked checking account your wife deliberately left accessible. The trust assets were never touched." He paused. "Your wife was a remarkably thorough woman, Mr. Mitchell." I said, "Yes, she was." The legal recovery of the $214,800 took 4 months. Jennifer had already moved a portion of it, but what she had moved came back. And what she had never found, the trust Patricia had built in the quiet evenings at the kitchen table, remained exactly where Patricia had placed it, untouched. Exactly right, as everything she ever built always was. Marcus and Jennifer separated 3 months after the hospital. Marcus told me in a phone call on a Tuesday morning. His voice was even, steady. He said, "She never asked about you while you were in surgery, Dad. I didn't notice that until I started paying attention to what I had not been noticing. She never once asked how you were." I didn't say anything. "I'm going to be okay," he said. "I know," I said, "because you're your mother's son, and she was always okay, even when she wasn't." In the spring after the surgery, I went out to Patricia's garden. She had let it go during treatment and I had let it go after. 3 years of letting go. I found her gardening notebook in the kitchen drawer, her handwriting in the margins. What works, what to try differently next year. A future she had been planning for while she was fighting. That was Patricia. She always planned ahead, even when ahead was uncertain, even when she knew she might not be there for it. She left the plans anyway, for whoever came after. I followed her notes. I made mistakes. I fixed them. The garden came back. Not exactly as she had it, but close. Close enough that on a quiet morning, with the light right, it felt like she had just stepped inside for a moment and would be back. One Saturday, Marcus showed up with a truck bed full of timber. He said, "Mum's garden deserves something over it. I've been looking at the pictures." We spent the day building a pergola. We didn't talk about Jennifer. We didn't talk about the hospital. We talked about the wood, what was good and what wasn't. We talked about his grandfather, who had been a carpenter. We talked about the way Patricia used to deadhead the roses on Sunday mornings with her coffee cup on the garden wall. Small things, real things. The things that survive when everything else is stripped away. By the end of the day, the structure was up. Simple, square, solid. Marcus stepped back and looked at it. He said, "Dad, I'm sorry for all of it. Not just the account. For the years I was somewhere else. For not being here when Mum..." His voice stopped. I looked at the pergola, at the garden underneath it, at the notebook margin handwriting I had followed all spring. I said, "Marcus, your mother didn't leave that envelope to punish you. She left it to make sure you'd have a father standing here when you found your way back. You found your way back. That's what she wanted. That's all she ever wanted." He nodded once. We stood there in the quiet for a moment. Just a father and a son, standing on a foundation that held. That was always going to hold. Because the woman who built it knew what she was doing. I have been asked why I'm telling this story. The honest answer is, because Patricia would have wanted me to. She believed that the things we go through alone, the quiet betrayals, the hospital rooms in the dark, the kitchen tables at midnight, are not meant to stay alone. She believed that when you have been through something, you owe it to the next person to tell them. So here I am, 68 years old, a construction man, telling you that the most important structure I was ever part of was not built by me. It was built by the woman who loved me, who saw what was coming before I did, who planned for it carefully and quietly and without complaint, who made sure that when the worst happened, I would still have something to stand on. Patricia Mitchell, my wife, the invisible foundation of everything I had. If you have someone in your life who loves you like that, quietly, practically, thoroughly, do something for me. Go tell them. Today. Don't wait until you're sitting at a microphone. Don't wait until the envelope is in a drawer. Tell them now. I go back to the garden every morning now. Sometimes I bring my coffee and Patricia's notebook. Sometimes I just stand there. The pergola is solid. Marcus built the crossbeam square. I checked. The roses are coming back. Not like before. Different. But growing. There is a version of this story where it is about money, about a man who outsmarted the people who underestimated him, about winning. That is not the version Patricia built. She didn't design that trust to win anything. She designed it so that when the worst happened, the people she loved would still have something to stand on. I learned something in 68 years of pouring foundations. The most important part of any structure is the part you cannot see. The rebar inside the concrete, the joists inside the wall, the part nobody photographs, nobody praises, nobody notices, unless it fails. Patricia was the invisible part of everything I ever built, and everything I have left is evidence of her work. Jede regret after 50 kahani. Life lessons, late reflections,